Hi there, Tracy here with another scrapbooking process video. This time I'm using the Just a Girl kit and add-on from the Scraptastic Kit Club, which was the January kit from 2016. And I'm going to start by just having a look through some of the pattern papers that come in the kit. I have already used this kit for a layout, so you'll see that some of the paper is cut into. And I have this piece of gray paper. It's from the Basic Gray B-side collection. And I thought it was going to make a really good background for this layout because I'm going to be scrapbooking a picture of saying goodbye to our international student Camilla, who had been staying with us from Italy for the first semester of the school year. And it was a bit of a sad, well, it is a bit of a sad story. It's always hard to say goodbye. So I didn't necessarily want this one to be bright and cheerful, so I thought that choosing that neutral gray background would be really nice. Now, this paper is from the Like a Girl collection from Photoplay, and I really like some of the speech bubbles. My cat is like really crazy wanting my affection right now, and I'm trying very hard to not cut her by accident, but I only had a certain amount of time to do this layout, so I had to keep going. She really wants some affection. That's Lila. She's a year and a half old. So I'm cutting out some speech bubbles that are relevant to Camilla because, I think that it takes a lot of courage to pick up and leave your life behind, especially when you're a teenager. So much happens with your friends and boyfriends and all that stuff at that phase of life. And I really have so much respect and admiration for the students who come to stay with us. And so I just wanted to include some speech bubbles that were relevant to that. So there I am just trimming up that paper. And Lila loves to just sit in my arms like this. I don't know. She always just wants me to keep picking her up like that. And she'll just curl up in a ball and sleep like that, which is quite uncomfortable for me because she's heavy. I mean, she's a tiny cat, but she's heavy for me because I'm weak. So here she is totally playing with my ruler and distracting me. But I'm going to cut this piece of pattern paper. This bokeh paper is also from the Photoplay Like a Girl collection, and it has black chevrons on the back of it, which I'm also going to use. And now this star paper is from 7 Paper, and you see that I've already used it. And I'm going to cut, at first I thought a horizontal strip, but it's going to end up being a vertical strip. And I start off with these papers being quite large and with lots of them showing, but I'm actually going to trim them down a little bit right here. So yeah, there was just too much of the pattern showing. I wanted this layout, I was pretty sure that it was going to have a long title, so I wanted to make sure that I had lots of room on my background paper for that big long title that I was going to have. And so this paper is from Fancy Pants, from the Happy Place collection. And although it is a sad story of saying goodbye, I liked some of the phrases, even though some of the phrases are quite happy. The ones that really struck me are "more than I could have imagined," which is said a couple of times, and then "for a smile, memories are made of bliss." So even though there's some on there that aren't relevant, like "today was a good day" and "a dream come true," I mean, I guess coming to Canada might have been a dream come true. It was something that she really wanted, anyhow. So some of the phrases were relevant, so I decided to use that paper. So here I am trimming down all of these papers even more so, and I did notice that I really liked that black pattern paper. It was the back side of the red and green polka dotted paper that's kind of looks like confetti or bokeh or whatever you want to call it. So again, I just keep on skimming off more and more bits of the paper, so I don't want to go too far with cutting them down. I don't want little slivers showing. I do like that look sometimes, but for today I wanted, a fair amount of the pattern to be showing, but not too much. So I planned when I got the kit this month, I noticed that this little this little glassine bag that the flare badges came in from Caitlin Schaefer, I noticed that it didn't it didn't rip apart. It didn't have a really sticky sticker that rips the bag. So I thought I would use it. And since I'm using that bag, I decided to also use the other glassine bag that came in the kit. So this is just packaging that came in the kit. It's not really scrapbooking supplies per se, but I do like to use the packaging whenever it is particularly nice. So now, see, I didn't want that little corner up there, so I made that paper thinner so that you wouldn't see that black corner. I am going to leave the black corner up on the second piece, though. I just decided that it was a little bit too lopsided, so I'm going to stick the other side of that piece of pattern paper in the other side. Now I'm going to fill this tiny little glassine envelope with some sequins, and then I'm going to put that chipboard A on there. And I spilled my sequins as I was doing that. So I thought I might sprinkle some sequins at the end. I wasn't sure if I was going to do mist sprinkles, and if so, I was going to sprinkle some sequins. So I'm just going to hold on to those up there for now. And now I will advise you to be very, very careful and slow. I'll move my hands the next time. Sorry about that. When you sew over a pocket of sequins like this, because obviously it takes your needle a little bit of I don't know. You don't want to break your needle when you're doing this, and yeah. So that's what it looks like. I just sewed 3 strips across it on the very slowest setting, and if you don't have the ability to control the speed of your machine, I would entrust my pedal. If I didn't have the speed dial on my machine, I would have hand rolled it, like spun the wheel with my hand to make the needle go in every single time individually, just because you definitely don't want to be speedy on that, because you don't want to break your needle. So I'm just thinking about and trying out different options here for layering. What I don't like about that, and now the backing of that sticker stuck to that die cut, and now I can't. Anyhow, I'll fix that later. Yeah, so I didn't want to cover up too much of that glassine bag, because already the A chipboard sticker and the ampersand are covering it up a fair amount. So I decided to not layer that piece of transparency. It was a little gem. I'll fix it later, because some of the backing of the chipboard sticker stuck to it. I'm adding a geotag because this layout is about traveling. This is a photo of our international student as she's in the lineup for going through security to head back to Italy. And it was very sad. There were lots of tears, and it's always sad saying goodbye. And it's one of those things that we know when we take in a student that we're going to love them and they're going to be a part of our family no matter what. And so we know when we take them that it's going to be hard to say goodbye, but it doesn't help. In knowing that doesn't really make it any easier. But we try to focus on the fact that we were lucky to get to know Camilla, and that, we have a lifelong friend over in Italy now because of the experience. And she got a chance to experience Canadian high school and make some friends and learn the language a little bit better and that sort of thing. So anyhow, we try to stay focused on the positive, even though saying goodbye is very, very sad. So you saw me take one of those Heidi Swap stickers. I just did some journaling on it, and I layered it with the other 2 stickers that I had there. So basically, I'm making a little cluster here, a little self-contained embellishment cluster. Used a couple of those enamel shapes from Heidi Swap, and I'm also going to stick this swatch of, it looks like a paint swatch. It's a Scraptastic die cut that came in the kit. And it's made out of like a flexible plastic. So I have those 2 strips here. Oh, my hair's a little crazy. So I have these 2 strips, and they include some of the phrases that I told you, as well as some not really relevant phrases, but that's okay. And I'm thinking about putting the word breathe down there, that Heidi Swap word, because, when you're upset, it's always good to breathe. So I'm just going to stick these layers together the way that I had planned. And then it occurred to me, I forgot to do my outlining. So I just pull out my Stampin' Up piece of paper. I have like a giant notepad from Stampin' Up, and I use it for my outlining because it's bigger than 12 by 12, which means that if I'm outlining really large pieces of paper, it will fit. And if I go off the edges, it just goes onto the paper instead of messing up my craft mat. My old craft mat was filled with stray lines, and it was really distracting and hard to use the grid. So I decided when I got this new one a couple years ago that I would try to keep it nice and neat and tidy. So I'm just going to So I'm liking how this is all coming together. Yeah, I'm quite liking it. So I'm going to stick that piece of black paper in there. And I like how that provides a little bit of balance with the black paper over on the other side. And I'm thinking about where I'm going to put that X and O. I thought about putting it there, and then I thought, oh, it looks really nice sticking out of the glassine bag. So I think that's where I'm going to put the X and O. I like that it can really be quite inside the bag and you still see it. So that's what I like about that. Now, this whole glassine bag is seeming like it's just a smidgen too long for me. So rather than cutting off the end of it, because it has that really nice little rough edge where the opening is, I don't want to cut off the opening. So I'm just going to cut it in half behind where my layers are, and I'll figure out where I want to put it and place it down. And then I will stick the second piece overlapping so that just a smidgen of the other side of it is showing on the other side. So that a smidgen of the bottom of it is showing on the other side is what I meant to say. I curled up the X and O little die cut just to give it a little bit of interest and make it look like it's sticking out of that pouch. And everything is coming together so quickly because I already did most of my layering for the embellishment on this one, so that's what it looks like. I did leave the gold threads hanging from it. I took off the purple threads because my bobbin was purple, so I didn't want purple threads showing. And I just took a picture of the embellishment because I thought I might use this layout for an upcoming blog post, and so I thought I would just take a picture of the embellishment on its own. And I am going to stick this little love squiggly line die cut. That's also from the Scraptastic Club. It's exclusive to the kit this month. And I just want it so that it's not hanging below that piece of pattern paper below it. Still not sure what I'm going to do with the word breathe. I'm kind of thinking about it as I go. And here come the speech bubbles. So remember these, I cut them out at the beginning. These are some of the more relevant speech bubbles to Camilla and to just the experience of studying abroad. And so I'm using the broad end of my Zig writer. I think it's 1.2 is the size of it. And I like it for a nice bold outline. And it gives these speech bubbles just a little bit more substance. I am going to place them amongst some layers, like over top of some layers, so I really want them to stand up and not get lost. So using a bold outline really helps with that. It can take a die cut or an element that would be very light and airy and makes it a little bit heavier and weighty. So I am fussy cutting around these. And one tip that I have for fussy cutting is to hold the scissors relatively in one place and turn the paper as opposed to turning the scissors around the paper. And also to take long cuts. So those are my tips for fussy cutting. It's not as hard as you think. I think a lot of, at least for me, I don't know if other people are like this, but a lot of the barrier for fussy cutting for me tends to be a psychological barrier where I think it's going to be like take a long time and be really cumbersome, but once you sit down and do it, it just takes a minute. Like it's so quick. So you'll see that I have 4 of them picked out there, and so I need to find a 5th just for balance, just because of the way that they're sitting on the layout. And I wanted it to point over to the left, not over to the right. So I was kind of trying to find one that was relevant and that pointed to the left, and I found this one that said "You are fierce." It was one of the ones I was planning to use, and it didn't make the first cut, so it made the second cut, literally. Yeah, so I like how those speech bubbles look all layered up like that. I don't, or not layered, but kind of stacked up at the top of the photo. I don't use speech bubbles a whole lot. I don't know why. I don't dislike them. I just find them hard to use. I like them to be relevant, and I don't know. I like them to normally point at a person, like make it look like an actual speech bubble as opposed to just a random decoration on your layout. But I thought in this case, I just liked the phrases, and I think putting a whole bunch of speech bubbles like this is a really good way to get a whole bunch of relevant phrases onto a layout. One of the things that I like to do, so these are the letter stickers that come in the kit. This one is called hardcover, and then the other one is called imprint. And I'm going to line these up first on my wax paper so that I can get a sense of how I want them to be laid out. And then I will show you a tip for getting long titles on your layout in a way that is straight. So while I'm placing those letters, I'll go back to what I was saying a few minutes ago. I like my layouts with respect to these speech bubbles. So I like my layouts to do a lot of the talking for me with as far as the storytelling goes. So, at first glance of my layouts, it might look like I'm not much of a storyteller because a lot of my layouts don't have a whole lot of writing on them. I don't know. I'm very verbal in my everyday job. Like, it involves a lot of language. And so I feel like when I scrapbook, I want it to be more visual. Just, it kind of gives me that balance in my life. So I don't do a whole lot of journaling, but I do like different design elements to tell part of the story for me. So those phrases about Camilla, use your wings, you are awesome, she who is brave is free, you are fierce, and believe in yourself. Those are things that I have said to Camilla. And so putting those on the layout tells part of the story for me, and I don't have to say that this is a conversation we had, or it's not even really all that important to someone else looking at the layout. It's more for me, like when I look at this layout and I see those words, I'll know that they were there for a reason. So now I'm going to talk a little bit about how to get your long titles straight on your layout. In order to do this, what you need is a grid mat like I have and a ruler that is longer than 12 inches. So mine, I think, is 16 inches I see there. And so what I'm doing is I'm lining up my 12 by 12 background paper on my grid mat, and I'm just sticking it down with washi tape so that it doesn't move too much. And you'll notice that I used my wax paper and figured out where the G was going to go, and I just placed my G. And now I'm using, again, the grid markings on my grid mat to place the ruler so that it's absolutely straight. And now I'm going to work backwards from the word G and see how quickly those letters go. I mean, it's 4 times faster. It looks a lot quicker than it actually is, but it's very, very easy. So now I'm just judging the width, like how tall I want this space to be based on the word good. And I'm placing my ruler again, and I'm sticking it down with the washi tape. And the nice thing about a ruler is that it does have lines and numbers on it. So I figured out where the D needed to go, and I took note of the number on the ruler in that spot. And then I was able to place the D exactly where I wanted it to be. And again, I'm going to center the word by, and I'm just taking a look at what number is under the E, and then I'm putting it right back in the same place. And I'm just going to keep on doing this, keep on moving my ruler down line by line and sticking it back in place as soon as I get it kind of sorted where I want it to be. And then having a look at the markings on the ruler to decide, see, I knew that the T needed to be placed at the 11.5 mark. I'm using centimeters here just because that's what side is facing up on my ruler. And yeah, so again, I'm kind of placing the is, and I knew that I wanted it to be right around that 9. So, and again, I'm going to move my ruler down, line it up with that grid, and kind of make sure that there's enough room for the word hardest to fit there. And taking note of where the T goes, it belonged right at the 15 mark. And using the centimeter side of your ruler is really good for this because there are more options. Like instead of having to think, oh, it's at the 5 3/4 mark, I could just look at the 15 and there's just more frequent marks on the centimeter side. Finally, down to the last word of my title, and you'll see how my title is nice and perfectly straight. and lined up, and I didn't have to spend a whole lot of time obsessing over it or trying to figure out how to get it straight. My ruler did all the work for me, and now I'm just going to tear off this washi tape. I used a tackier washi tape than I probably should have. I used that 3M stuff, and so it did tear up some of the paper there, and I just fixed it with my 2-egg zig glue pen. If I used a regular washi tape, it wouldn't have done that at all. And now I'm just going to place my cluster of papers and photo and embellishments at a place that looks good to me, according to where the title is. And now my last final detail before I do my journaling is I'm just going to run a line of stitching along each of those strips of paper at the top and the bottom. It's a very, very subtle detail that I'm adding. I just had a tangle in my thread there that I had to fix. And it's very subtle, but I like it. I like those subtle details. And you'll notice that I left the paper strips on the top and the bottom don't go all the way to the end. I think that just adds another little bit of interest. So I hang them off one edge and on opposite edges. So there's a little gap of gray showing in the bottom left hand corner and a teensy weensy little gap of gray showing in the top right hand corner. Now I'm doing my journaling, some of my journaling. I'm just writing Camilla's name and Italy, so I remember where she's from. I can't imagine forgetting Camilla, but you never know how many years from now people will be looking back on this and they might not have me with them to explain that she was from Italy. And now I'm trying to decide what ink I'm going to use. I'd love to use this Surfaces ink, which is a slick surface ink, and it's the similar color to the marker that I was using, but it is completely dried out. So I threw it away. Maybe you can re-ink them, but I hate that ink. It really stinks really, really badly. I was wondering why it wasn't smelling so bad. It's like completely dried, and I've only used it once. So I'm pretty disappointed that it didn't, keep its juiciness. My Stays-On ink I've had for probably 8 years, and it's still juicy, and I've never re-inked it. So yeah, I'm going to stick to Stays-On from now on because it smells delicious and it stays juicy. So I'm going to run some journaling over here on the right-hand side of my layers of paper and embellishments and stuff. And I'm just using my ruler. I'm using my grid mat in the same way to line up my ruler so that I am drawing straight lines here. I draw a few lines, and then I do a bit of journaling, and then I draw a few more lines. My lines are in 0.01, which makes them quite a bit thinner than my writing marker, and I'm writing with a 0.5 there. Yeah, it's actually 0.1, not 0.01. And now I'm just adding a few more lines. So it says, I'm so proud of Camilla for coming to live with us and experiencing all Canada has to offer. And then I had more to say, but I didn't want to squeeze it in on the other side of that XOXO, so I'm going to continue it down here, and I just put a little ellipse at the end of the word offer to let the reader know to look for more. So again, a little bit of lines, a little bit of writing, and then a little bit more lines, just so that I don't end up with way too many lines. That's why I do it that way. And then the last bit of journaling says, even when it was outside of her comfort zone. I don't know how they do it. I know when I was 16 and 17, there's no way I would have had the confidence to pick up and move to a different country and like leave my friends behind and try to meet new people. Oh, I don't know how they do it. Anyhow, here are some close-up shots of what this looks like. This was a really fun layout to do, and I'm so glad to have a layout that emphasizes specifically Camilla because she's played such a big role in our family, and I wanted to make sure that I got this layout documents not only her parting, which the title suggests, it's so hard to say goodbye, but it also captures a little bit of the essence of her character and the role that she played in our family as well. So here are the close-up photos of it. I hope that you guys enjoyed this process video. Take care and have a really great scrappy week.